All right, and we've got an hour left of this broadcast. So 845-1100, I think we've got callers holding. So we'll go to the callers, and we've been talking about a lot of things this morning, and some of the things that I wanted to talk about we never get to. So that's okay. 845-1100, good morning. You're on the air.
Oh, great show this morning. So I'm glad you're on because I'm not an expert on Obamacare, so I might actually learn something from you today. So if I'm getting just let me know if I got this right. So the Democrats want part of this $1.5 trillion that they're asking for. They want that to subsidize the Obamacare premiums so they don't go through the roof, right?
Yeah, look, here, the Affordable Care Act, there are so many problems with it, and there are fixes that have to be made. And even Barack Obama has said there are fixes. I mean, it got passed in 2009. We're in 2025. We're still running basically essentially with the same law, largely because the Democrats are afraid the Republicans want to gut it, and the Republicans are afraid that the Democrats want to overload it. So neither party has been able to come together to adjust what actually, in concept, makes sense, but in reality has a lot of pitfalls, and there are a lot of problems with that act. And one of the biggest ones is that it still prohibits insurance companies from selling policies over state lines. And that's a real problem in this country. And we can do a whole show on it, but that keeps the cost of many policies inflated. And so right now it's a subsidy that's given. There's easier ways to give better insurance than what exists. And again, I don't want to call it Obamacare. As I pointed out to Ron, it was ABC News who first coined the phrase Obamacare back when it was being considered. But the Affordable Care Act benefits as many Republicans as it does Democrats. There are a lot of people that depend on it. And there are some great benefits, but there are some real mistakes and some real errors that have occurred over the last 15 years, and it has to be fixed.
Okay, so at the end of the day, they need to use the taxpayers' money to subsidize this thing so these premiums don't go crazy on people. Am I correct?
In the current state, that's correct. And part of the fix has to be to eliminate the need for those subsidies. Okay,
and here's where my issue is. So I pay for my health care every month, and now you need my tax dollars to pay for these to subsidize somebody else's health care for their premiums.
In its current form, you're correct. Should that be one of the fixes? And that's where look here, the idea, the concept, you're right. It is. It's a bunch of bull. Look, the concept.
Just be Canada.
Well, the idea is that we were going to basically, the Affordable Care Act, we were going to buy large blocks of health insurance and make it available for people to buy. And, it's like anything else, the economy of scale, right? If you buy 10 trucks, you're going to pay one amount. If you buy 100 trucks, you're going to pay a lower amount per truck because you're buying more trucks. So the idea was with the Affordable Care Act is we were going to be buying millions of policies so small businesses and individuals could go out and get affordable health care coverage because they would be part of this big pool. But it never materialized that way. Instead, it became a subsidy that basically it almost defeats the purpose of the Affordable Care Act the way it's currently structured. And again, I would need a couple hours to go into all the details and all the problems that exist with the act. I just got a call recently from somebody who was talking to me in a business conversation about the Affordable Care Act, and I was trying to explain that once again, the concept makes sense, but the reality is that we don't go out and buy a million health insurance policies so that the price is lower. What we're doing is we're subsidizing a million policies, and there lies the problem.
I want the taxpayers to fund my health care.
Well, here you bring up another point. Okay, is it fair that you have to pay for your health insurance, but other people are being subsidized through the tax rolls. And
my tax
again, it's look, there's so many problems. They got some things right. The one thing that if you say to me, well, is the Affordable Care Act completely corrupt and wrong? I would tell you no. They got some things right. The provision that basically says that everybody should get an annual physical and that annual physical should be covered by insurance. I think that's a great part of the act. And I'll tell you why. Because any doctor I've ever talked to has agreed that if you catch, if you have somebody come in for an annual physical instead of overloading the emergency rooms in this country, first off, they can go and they can do an examination, they can do blood tests, and they can catch things like cancer and heart disease in its infancy, which means people are going to live longer. The cost is going to be lower. It's lower to catch cancer in its infancy than to catch it at stage 3 and it's full blown and the person may not even live. So it makes sense to do those kinds of things. The provision on individuals getting to stay on their parents' health insurance, that actually made sense as well, because there were a lot of individuals who were graduating from college and being thrown off their parents' insurance, or they went into the workforce at age 18 and they were taking part-time work and they couldn't get full health insurance coverage. Some of those things made sense. If you look at the cost of health insurance and health care for someone Lynette's age, it's a whole lot cheaper than for someone my age. Okay.
Right.
So there were some good ideas within the Affordable Care Act, but there were some real mistakes, and the subsidy is one of the biggest mistakes. It doesn't create the free market and the market competition that was envisioned by Barack Obama. And he has said it himself. He has said it himself that that's where the fault lies. So both the Democrats and the Republicans say there's a problem, but nobody wants to talk about it. And now the Democrats are holding the federal government hostage with the continuing resolution, because and again, it's a much bigger debate and much bigger discussion. And we need to move on. We need to fund the government, continue funding the government, and then have this debate and have a sincere debate about how to best fix the Affordable Care Act. That's what we need to do.
Yeah. And hey, Tom, just to let you know, I usually like to go fishing in Southwest Florida about 2-3 times a year. Love it down there. And I've never went fishing with a dozen 55-gallon blue barrels on the boat.
Well, again, look, those drug smugglers, it has been a problem that was pointed out all the way back to George W. Bush. Bush pointed it out, Obama pointed it out, Trump pointed it out in his first administration. Drug smugglers, I'm not going to lose any sleep over drug smugglers getting killed by U.S. military forces for trying to run millions and millions of pounds of fentanyl here every year and killing tens of thousands of people. I have no problem. You are putting lives at risk, U.S. lives at risk. We need to do something. I think it sends a clear message to the drug cartels that we're not going to just let them walk all over us. I think that's a smart move. I think it's a smart move.
All right, have a good one, Tom.
All right. Thank you so much. 845-1100 is the number. And I think for the first time in 2 hours and 7 minutes, there's nobody waiting. But as soon as you call, we'll take your call. 845-1100. I do want to get to some other issues. I mean, we spent a lot of time talking about Frank Mervan, but I found it interesting that one of the wealthiest people on earth, an individual who, a lot of people know who he is, Bill Gates, put out a guest commentary in the New York Times, I believe it was yesterday or over the weekend, was reported yesterday. And basically he's now saying that, maybe we need to rethink the focus that we have on climate change. I find that very interesting because the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation spent millions upon millions of dollars for years pushing this agenda, if you will, about climate change and how climate change was the biggest threat to life on Earth, that it was the number one issue that we had to focus on. And all of a sudden now Bill Gates is backing off on that and saying, well, yeah, there's other issues that we should consider. So that was something that I wanted to talk about this morning because to me, again, it kind of goes back to the conversation that I had with Ron with politicians. Politicians can make mistakes and say things and do we hold them accountable and we never forget the one thing that they say which was wrong. But in the case of Bill Gates, Gates has repeatedly and even funded, this push towards the debate about climate change. And now he's saying, well, yeah, all these years we've kind of maybe made it too much of a focus. So I want to hear listeners and viewers 845-1100 about the issue of climate change, because to me it's quite remarkable that Gates is now changing his tune on that one. The other is there's been a pop-up vendor, and I don't understand this at all. There is a pop-up vendor that I guess has tacos or Mexican food. He's been all over the internet. He was located in Hammond. Hammond PD chased him out. He was located in East Chicago. East Chicago PD chased him out. He was located in Gary. Gary PD chased him out, evidently. And now he's in Munster. And yeah, he's probably going to get chased out of Munster. And I don't understand about pop-up vendors and why there's such a fascination with these vendors. Everybody and their brother is out on Facebook, for example, sharing, here's the location, okay? And look, I have nothing wrong with people trying to make a dollar, but pop-up vendors, the problem is that they're not paying any taxes. There's no health inspections. There's no there's no sales tax. There's none of those things that our communities basically rely on. If you open up a business, you have to get permits. You have to have a health permit. You have to have health inspections. You have to have all these things. And it's fine to say, this is a little guy and he's trying to make a dollar. That's true. But at the same time, do we not want to support our businesses that invest in our communities? And I mean, Lynette, have you heard about this pop-up vendor, the taco sales vendor that's been featured on Facebook so much lately?
I don't think I have.
I have no idea. I hear everybody says they're from somewhere out west and they came to the region and that the food is fantastic and it's wonderful. But as soon as the police show up, they get moved to a different location. And again, I know for a fact that they've been in Hammond, East Chicago, and Gary, and the police departments have shown up and said, you can't operate here because you don't have proper permits. You're not paying, taxes, all those things. And I find it a bit of a contradiction that people are actually getting upset because the police are making them move on, and all the police are doing is basically enforcing the law. We have a caller?
Yep, we have one caller.
Okay, well, we'll go to that caller. Good morning. Good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Tom. How are you doing?
Fine. How are you?
I'm doing well. This is Bill from Griffith.
Hey, Bill. How are you?
Fantastic, sir. Hey, I was just listening to you about the pop-up vendor, but the permit thing I think is going to be like the biggest thing, because don't you need a food permit?
Well, you're supposed to have you're supposed to have a health permit, right? I mean, look, I mean, I'm assuming that if people that are standing in these lines, and I saw one post Monday night that said the line was over a block long when they were located in Hammond, and I think that's great. But you know what? Hammond has a number of Mexican restaurants that I frequent. And you know what? They pay taxes, they pay payroll, they have health permits, they do all kinds of things to keep their business up. They pay property taxes. And I find it difficult when people are out there saying, this is just heavy-handed tactics by the police and they should leave these guys alone. Well, what about El Taco Real, who has been in business since like 1977, pays taxes, has a payroll, puts money into the community, has all the correct permits. I mean, if you're going to a pop-up, you're not going to go over to his restaurant. So aren't you hurting those local businesses? I was very surprised by the hundreds and hundreds of people who posted and said, "Oh, this is wrong. Let these guys operate."
Yeah,
I don't know. What say you?
For the very first time, Paul Goddard had posted it on Facebook, and I honestly didn't know anything about it. I didn't know what this guy was selling until you go through the comments, and that's when they're telling you, yeah, this is what he's selling, and So, but I think it's just the thrill of doing something on the sly, for some people. But for this guy, whoever the taco guy is, yeah, I agree. He's probably just trying to make a buck.
Well, and look, somebody said, you read some of the comments, Bill. Somebody pointed out and said, well, why do they they go after the people that are selling flowers on street corners on Mother's Day? Well, I can tell you, I knew a florist, in fact, who used to advertise on these very airwaves way back when Jed first bought the station. And they went out of business, and they were a regular advertiser. They were located in South Hammond, just off of they were on 165th, I believe, just off of Calumet Avenue. And they went out of business largely because they depended on holidays like Mother's Day and Easter and Sweetest Day. And they couldn't compete with the vendors that were standing on street corners. And they told me that. They said, look, we're closing our doors because we can't compete. And they spent tens of thousands of dollars. In fact, the owner told me he spent over $100,000 in opening that business, and he had to close because he couldn't compete with these street vendors. Now, it sounds great. Let's support the street vendors. Let's let everybody do what they want to do. But then when you close a business that paid property taxes, that invested $100,000 in their building, that had a regular payroll of 3 or 4 people working for them, well, aren't you hurting your community in supporting those pop-up vendors? I think you are.
Oh, absolutely, because not only are you hurting the business, but you're hurting those who had the job, okay?
Yeah.
First, you're hurting the owner because that's his livelihood, and then he's employing people that's their livelihood, and it's just a domino effect. And then you close a business, you close a store, and how long is it going to sit empty? And then all of a sudden it's considered a blight, and they don't want to, nobody's taking care of it. And now they want to demolish it or something. I mean, I'm talking, years down the line, but people aren't opening up businesses in existing structures as easily as they used to.
Yeah, it's very costly. There's that investment. There's, again, as you pointed out, there's a payroll. There's all these people that depend on them. And it's the same debate that we've had, for example, in downtown Whiting. So being involved with the Whiting-Robertsdale Chamber of Commerce over the years, there are a lot of people who say, oh, we should bring in food vendors, and we should, it should be every week downtown Whiting should be like Pierogi Fest. We can bring in, the food trucks. Okay. Well, at the same time, there's all these restaurants located in downtown Whiting and in Robertsdale, and those owners put a lot of money into the community to have an actual building, to have all the equipment, to have payroll and pay all the taxes that they pay. And then you're going to roll a couple of food trucks into the downtown area and decimate their business for the weekend. And people are like, well, yeah, why not? I mean, they have a right to make money too, but they're not paying for all those things. They're not supporting local high school football or supporting local organizations that these established businesses support. And it's just to me it's wrong for people to go out there. Sure, if guy has great food, maybe encourage him. Maybe you encourage him and say, hey, why don't you open up a permanent restaurant here? But to argue that the police are being heavy-handed because they're closing down these pop-up vendors, I disagree with completely.
Who knows what kind of conditions are in that kitchen that's in the pop-up vendor? Now, I'm not saying that they're all dirty or anything, but without a health inspection, who knows? I mean, you're they're doing this on the fly. How fast are they actually cleaning the place?
I agree. I agree.
How sanitary is it? I've had food poisoning before from a restaurant, and it's not pleasant. You spend the night in the hospital, and it's not pleasant at all.
Look, I remember when some guys from Northwest Indiana went to Taste of Chicago, and they bought it was, I can't remember, I think it was a hummus dip, and they got food poisoning. And once again, food sanitation is extremely important, and it's got to be followed. And these pop-up places, the guy, where's he getting the water from? Is he getting it from a garden hose? I mean, he doesn't have a sink out there and a proper sanitation system. It's just scary. Just scary.
Right.
Hey, thanks so much for the call.
Well, I wanted to ask you about another.
Sure.
I tried calling in yesterday, but I couldn't. But the two ladies that were on there yesterday, they were talking about how SNAP benefits are being canceled as of November 1st.
Mm-hmm.
And then they said that, there's got to be a way that they can protest. There's got to be a way that they can protest. Well, I don't know if you've heard about it, Tom, but there's a lot of chatter online with reels and even YouTube videos of people saying that Walmart is about to get looted starting tomorrow, and there's nothing anybody can do about it. And then the other thing that kind of scares me with my wife is people are going to start watching people going from the grocery store with their groceries to their car, and they're going to rob them. Have you heard anything about this?
Well, so I saw some of the videos, and look, I think sometimes you get people who make videos just for the sake of shock. I saw the two where one is a woman, one's a man, who say, the woman says she's just going to go in and take whatever she wants from Walmart. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, you go ahead and do that. Walmart usually has off-duty police security. They're going to arrest you. And then the guy who basically said, if they're not giving me my SNAP benefits, I can do whatever I want. And I'm just going to get, take the food that the person coming out. I certainly hope and pray that we never, as a society, get to that point. I understand that people need those benefits. Again, I think that the bigger tragedy is that we are refusing to enter into a continuing resolution, the so-called clean continuing resolution for government, and all it is an extension of the status quo, which is broken, but it's better than nothing. And I think that it's time for the Democrats and the Republicans to come together and just pass the darn thing and reopen government and not hurt innocent people on their SNAP benefits or on anything else, or to expect that air traffic controllers are going to work for free. I think that's just wrong.
But the hate between the Reds and the Blues, I mean, this is almost like a second Civil War. I mean, it's just like, it's such hate. I mean, they don't want to have the decency of coming together and saying, okay, I can see your point. Well, what about my point, though? The only person on the Democratic side that I'm actually seeing this, believe it or not, is Fetterman.
Fetterman has been the voice of reason. You're right. Fetterman has been the voice of reason. And look, I've said this before, and I do this actually as a training as a consultant. When I talk about communications, and this is for leaders and executives, if we treated the average person or the persons that we work with like we treat our family, shame on us. And the politicians in Washington right now are treating each other kind of the way we treat family. You call your siblings all kinds of stuff that you wouldn't want to say on the airwaves. Okay, you say things. You get mad at your spouse. You get mad at your kids. You get mad at your parents. Okay, and sometimes the people that are closest to us and our loved ones, we treat the worst way, and that's the way politicians in Washington are acting right now, and it's just wrong. And I think it's embarrassing that we're the most powerful country on earth, a country that millions of people want to aspire to be or to come to. And we can't get our act together on something as simple as just saying, okay, we're going to continue the status quo in funding. There's no reason for this to continue. They did it. The Republicans did it under Biden without problem. It shouldn't continue under Trump. I don't care who the president is. We should continue to run government. And if we're going to shut down government, if we're going to take money away from anybody, the first person we should take money away from is our congressmen and our senators, because they're the ones that control this. So they shouldn't get paid until they solve the problem.
I agree.
All right.
All right. Well, hey, thanks, Tom.
Thank you. 845-1100. I think we have somebody holding, but we're going to take a break. So stay on hold for just a minute, because Lynette, the award-winning Lynette, it says, I got to take a break. So you're listening to the Morning Call. We'll be right back.